Okay, and we are live from the IFS World Conference in Boston. My name is Alan O'Neill and this is WebQuarters TV. I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Stephen Keyes, who will have to give his own title from a region perspective, but is VP of the Asian region. And Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
You're
Please,
welcome.
for the viewers, just give the full title, APAC, etc.
Gosh, so Regional President for Asia Pacific, Japan, Middle East and Africa.
Brilliant.
That's a mouthful.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Stephen. I've got to start off, firstly, there's two things that we at WebQuarters are admiring you for and respecting you for. The first one is the great work that you did with Rabi. Mm-hmm. And that is something we want to talk about and thank you for, because that was a tremendous intervention. And the second and more important is the great work that you're doing with CSR and the foundation work that you do at IFS. And I think that the IFS ecosystem and those people who were unable to make it to IFS World Conference at Boston should absolutely know what we did last night, what you did last night with your team, and I think it was fantastic. So they're the couple of things I'd like to talk about.
Okay,
that's okay with you?
Very happy to do so.
Stephen, thank you. Rabi earlier in the day did a podcast, Mr. Nissa, Mr. Munther, who you met.
Yeah, very good.
They shared their story. I'll just remind you of this if you didn't need reminding, but 2001, first customer in Saudi, largest customer, ready to throw at IFS in 2017, engage WebQuarters to help with migration. We talked them into a bit of an assessment. What about improvement initiatives? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, etc. You remember that. And then Darren Roos joined IFS in April. One of the first discussions I had with Darren was how he could help convert some of those customers who are on the edge and possibly thinking of going to SAP. As soon as I mentioned SAP, Darren, who do you want me to talk to? Do you need an email?
Well, Darren's very customer focused, right?
Yep.
He always has been since I've known him. So that was a natural reaction, I'm sure.
Well, it was, but I think the great thing that was said today by Mr. Nissa was that the turning point for Rabi, when considering the move back to IFS, was the commitment shown by Mr. Stephen Keyes, who flew from Singapore to field the issues that they've been facing. And I would like you just to if you could just give us your recollection of that trip and that visit and your thoughts on that particular encounter.
Gosh, yeah, well, look, first of all, I can't really say it was me in particular. I seem to remember it was a team sport, and I'd always say that selling is a team sport, customer relationship management is a team sport, and when I think about the team, I think not just about IFS, but its partner ecosystem, of which WebQuarters forms a vital part. So, first of all, you created that opportunity for us to be able to engage, right? We can... The only objection I don't know how to handle is silence. Yeah. So, the customer was willing to have a conversation and you helped to facilitate and broker that. So that was a really important starting point. So thank you. Second point is, I think really strong relationships are forged in difficult conversations. It's easy to be the hero when things are going great. It's during the tough times that your true caliber of a partnership is determined. And I like to think that we're the kind of organisation and we're the kind of partners that keep going when the going gets tough, right? And that will not let the customer down. That's a really fundamental part of who we are as an organisation. And that came out in that conversation. It wasn't easy. We had to point out some hard truths at times, I seem to remember, during that meeting. And we had to hear a few hard truths as well. Yeah. But we got there. And I'm incredibly... You said that they subsequently engaged with WebQuarters and they've now gone live on Apps 10?
They went live 2 weeks ago.
That's
delighted
fantastic.
to say. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And it was a team effort between WebQuarters and IFS, and we worked closely, and it's just in time. Sugar tax impacts their business December 1, as you know. 50% of tax will be added to their sales come December 1, and all organisations who are producing sugary drinks in sugar products in Saudi So they're very, very grateful to be optimised on Apps 10, and it's already making a difference.
Good. I'm really pleased to hear it.
I had to. I've never seen anybody take so much criticism so well on that day. You were the consummate professional, and you represented IFS so perfectly.
It's no point in getting emotional. It's not personal, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So excellent input there, Stephen. Secondly, CSR.
Yep.
I was touched by Darren Rue's story last night. He talked about your interview process and enticing you to leave a very senior role with another vendor as CEO for a very, very successful company to come and join IFS in what one would say, if we only measure roles by title, might not be as senior as the CEO, but the bigger picture was there.
Yep.
And we are all delighted that you took that position. But what was quite touching is the message that the message that Darren gave last night was that you had. How did he describe it? There was a prerequisite.
Well, the way that the conversation played out is, I've known Darren for some time. I consider him to be both a friend and a colleague, and we've established a good, trusting working relationship and a personal friendship over a number of years. So it was a good conversation. We talked about some of the challenges at IFS. We talked about some of the opportunities for growth. I was excited. I won't shy away from that. And of course, you go through the necessary commercials and all the financial discussions. And yeah, sure, I started thinking about, okay, but what else? I was looking for the learning opportunity. I was looking for personal development. For me, learning and personal growth is an important part of any decision to work with different organisations. And the opportunity came up to take responsibility as executive sponsor for our CSR program. That means a lot to me at a personal level. At the risk of oversharing, I've been through a fair bit myself, and personal relationships and so on. I found myself at a point where I didn't have a lot going for me at one time, and then someone came into my life that taught me that even when you've got nothing, you've still got time that you can give, you've still got love and care and attention, and that struck a chord with me a few years ago. And since then, social responsibility, social projects, charitable work has played a really significant, important part of my life. Gives my personal and professional life meaning, and I was really pleased to be able to combine both a good collaborative working relationship, the opportunity to work with Darren again, the opportunity to make a difference in an up-and-coming organisation like IFS, and yes, to take on a leadership role and take on CSR responsibility on a global stage was pretty exciting.
And for those who don't know what the acronym means, Stephen, could you just share the CSR?
Yeah, of course. CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. So in very simple terms, it's a very intentional form of self-regulation whereby businesses hold themselves to be socially accountable, where traditionally an organisation might have said, we exist to maximise value for our shareholders.
Yes.
In today's world, an organisation says, that is still very, very important, it's super important, but also there are other stakeholders, right? There's staff, there's customers, there's the environment, and of course the communities in which we operate.
Yes.
So a lot of what we do from a CSR perspective at IFS is specifically about giving something back to the communities in which we operate, and that serve us also well.
Yes. What touched a chord last night was that we raised
over $60,000.
Over $60,000.
That's just phenomenal.
Tremendous. Tremendous, Stephen.
I can't begin to tell you how much difference that's going to make to our project. So, we spoke about it a little bit yesterday. It was a major part of the partner award ceremony. We were able to use that as a bit of a charity fundraiser. It was wonderful to see our partners, including WebQuarters, leaning in and being part of that process. So thank you for your support for that. That means a great deal to me. What we're trying to do is we've established a foundation, the IFS Foundation. It's a charitable trust, and the goal that we've set ourselves is to help break the poverty cycle in remote and rural parts of Sri Lanka.
Yes.
It's a massive part of our organisation. Over a third of our global workforce is based in Sri Lanka. Significant part of WebQuarters as well, right? So you have a number of employees there. How many
Over
now?
100 employees in Sri Lanka, and we've been developing that team since, for over 8 years now. And they are family.
Yeah.
And that is home from home. So I was particularly touched by the by the cause, and you know, I was overwhelmed that we raised 60,000.
It's fantastic, right? It's so for us, Sri Lanka as a focus point for the foundation makes complete sense. It's a community that serves us both,
of course,
both organisations
yes.
very well, because the work we do collectively. I mean, the work that you do, the work we do, we do R&D there, global support. You've got
yes.
a lot of service delivery capability there. Affects customers for both of us around the world. So it's like a common thread that you unite our global workforce.
Yes.
And I guess it's a way also of saying thank you to our staff in Sri Lanka as well, right?
Yeah.
By giving something back to that particular community.
And a selfless community.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you know, I know that a lot of people are embarrassed to receive gifts, and we've done such a lot of work as WebQuarters to help and support, and people are reluctant to take gifts and take support, etc. And those who really do need, we're so proud of what you're doing in Sri Lanka and other CSR programs. I also have to point out the tremendous growth in your particular region. Obviously, we've gone from a 8 region IFS business into a more consolidated 3 region. And you have you joke and say, well, there's North America, there's Europe, and rest of the world, and which is your good region. But you're experiencing some of the most successful outcomes in your region. Would you share with us what is happening and what your plans are for continued growth, please, Stephen?
Yeah, for sure. Look, in simple terms, yes, we consolidated those 8 market units into 3.
Yes.
And yes, I like to think of it not as rest of the world, but best of the world.
Best of the world. That's it. That's the term. My apologies.
And I guess, you know, there's a serious point that underlines that. What I mean by that is that we ought to be leading by example.
Yes.
And that we ought to be making a more meaningful contribution to global performance.
Yes.
I think historically we've taken a somewhat opportunistic approach to these regions, and we deserve to be doing better. So by combining Asia Pacific with Japan, with Middle East and Africa into one market unit, we were able to unlock profitability.
Yes.
That enabled us to invest in a dedicated regional leadership team. It's enabled us to invest in establishing a vibrant partner ecosystem, of which WebQuarters is part. It's enabled us to invest in quality personnel and really focus on marketing and brand awareness and a whole bunch of things. And quite frankly, what we've also done is decided to concentrate our investment. So rather than trying to be all things to all people, focus on specific geographies, specific industries, and really do well in those particular markets. And I think that focus and the discipline to stick to the decisions has driven execution, has driven performance. So
yes.
yeah, we're really proud of what we've done so far. It's a good start, and I'm incredibly proud of the effort that the team's put in. And
yes.
We anticipate continued growth into the future.
Perfect. The last topic I wanted to touch on, Mr. Mantha, as you know, nearly 40 years as CEO of Rabi. Rabi are producing and selling 1 million litres of fruit juice a day.
That's a lot of juice.
And they feel that they have an obligation, a duty, to help those organisations who are going to be affected by this tax. There's going to be a lot of casualties in the Saudi region for sugar tax. I mean, they had some analysis, and they believe that they're going to lose 30 to 40% of revenues based on these tax increases. And for many organisations, Stephen, that is unsustainable. And there's going to be a lot of casualties. Rather than waiting for the casualties to occur, we're talking about creating an innovation alliance between Rabi, WebQuarters. I talked to Mahmood about this.
Great.
Your
market unit leader for
the region. Yes, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, and also with some of the leading panels for F&B in the region. The idea would be that we take what we have done, the innovation, the digital transformation, and the huge benefits that we've added to the Rabi business. And with Rabi and IFS, WebQuarters, and some panelists, we go conduct a roadshow and start attracting those organisations who need help. And those organisations who who actually will be attracted by a subscription model to reduce costs. And so it's the first time I've talked to you about this in some detail, but we would love, when the timing is right, Stephen, we'd love to share more of those thoughts and those ideas with you, and hopefully we can have some support from your good self in that endeavour.
I mean, you had the keynote presentation this morning from Linda Hill, right?
Yes.
And I was really taken with that conversation she had around, where are organisations today and that opportunity gap, what could they be doing versus the performance gap of what should they be doing.
Yes.
And sometimes external factors force us into the what should we be doing.
Yes.
And a performance gap, and there clearly is one. Technology and technological innovation is one way of addressing those types of challenges, and we'd like to be at the forefront of that discussion. That sounds like exactly what you want to be doing, so we'd be glad to be part of that.
Darren finished off last night after paying many compliments to you. His final one is, you're an absolute gentleman. And you heard that. We echo that at WebQuarters. We're
very kind of you.
Very, very grateful for all you do for us in the region and outside, and especially your CSR work. We will support you in any way we can.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Keys, thank you very much for taking part of WebQuarters TV.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. All the best.